Hi. The soothing music you hear behind you is brought to you by thescaleoftheuniverse.com. Yeah, it's a nice site. So this just shows everything from the largest star to just the smallest thing ever. So there we go. To the universe itself. There we go. Observable universe. Now, we're going to be looking at scale that's relevant for viruses. So we've got to go small, but the question is how small? So let's get a little closer. So part of this class is virus logic, learning how to approach the world in kind of the same way that a virus would approach the world. They're easier to understand from that perspective, since that's kind of our goal, understanding these viruses. So, smaller than an egg? Absolutely, smaller than an egg. And there's a marble, there's a penny, that's fine. We're getting down there. Little tiny ant, adorable. Okay, now we're getting into microscopic stuff. Little grain of sand. Amoeba is actually on the big side for cells, and we're getting there. And here we go. See this little pink guy coming in right above my arrow? There is an animal cell. So relative to the size of a pixel on the screen, it is tiny. Yeah, much smaller than a dust mite, much smaller than an amoeba. And viruses are much smaller. So if a skin cell is this big, and take that as an average size cell, red blood cells on the small side because it doesn't have a nucleus. You can see there's the size of a chromosome, all bundled up, and you gotta go smaller, way smaller than bacteria. And here you get them starting to come in. So Mimi virus is a very big virus. Here's like the largest virus that's known. And down here, this is HIV. HIV is like an average size virus. There are many that are smaller, like this little guy. There we go, hepatitis B. It's on the small side. I don't believe it's the smallest one, but that's reasonable. So, HIV, or any virion, like the virus particle for a virus, is going to be tiny and is going to be made of many copies of the same proteins. Problem is, those proteins are going to be made by the cell, and they're going to be made anywhere in the cell that there are ribosomes, because that's how proteins are made. And there are ribosomes just about everywhere in the cell. So there's our HIV, and remember HIV is a little smaller than the top of this bacteriophage, because as we zoom out, it's just going to fade away to a pixel. So there's the size, and we are not yet to the point where we can get a cell on screen. There's the top of our bacteriophage. There's our little HIV. And over here, there's the size of our skin cell. So let's see if we can get them both on the screen at the same time. Well, we can get part of one on screen. There you go. That little dot right there is HIV that you can barely see, and this is the tiniest edge of a cell. So this is the scale problem. The size of HIV relative to the cell is about the same as the size of you relative to the combined East Campus and West Campus of Texas A&M University. Yeah, which is to say small. Say you needed to assemble a couple of hundred proteins, actually a couple thousand proteins, to make yourself a virion. Say one of them is in the 17th hole on the golf course. Another one's on the 3rd floor of the Blocker building somewhere. Yeah. One's in a bush over by the core dorms. A couple of them are over on West Campus. I don't even know any buildings on West Campus. And somehow you have to get all of those things together. Meanwhile, the cell is trying to kill you. Yeah. So maybe it's not like campus so much, because we do try to take care of students. It's actually, the scale is actually also about proportionate to one person compared to the Fortnite map, like that whole Fortnite island. So maybe it's a little bit more like that, just a constant barrage of enemies attacking and running around and trying to collect all the little pieces, because they all have to end up in the same place in order to make one of those little spiky virion balls. Life's tough as a virus because they are so small. So I just wanted to give you a sense of that and some little scale numbers that you can think of. Viruses are going to overcome this with a couple of kind of neat tricks. One of the things that you will see virus after virus do is they will use cell trafficking pathways. So you'll frequently see viruses get into the secretory pathway. And you can do that by having a thing called a signal peptide. It's just like a little ticket that they, used to tear like 100 years ago at the movie theater, or boarding a steam train, because why not? And that marks the protein for transport up to the surface, and it goes on a nice long journey, but everything's at least going to end up in the plasma membrane that starts out with a signal peptide rather. Another way that viruses do it is by adding lipid molecules. And believe it or not, lipids are sorted constantly inside the cell. There are some lipids that are only in certain places. They will segregate in little clumps, like little floating islands of matched lipids of similar size. And that is a useful way. You'll find a lot of viruses that will sort of home in on these by making sure that they get the right signal molecule attached. So yeah, attaching things, cutting things off, and evolving proteins that are really good at recognizing each other and stacking together. Because to make a little tiny virus, like you can barely see right there, it's going to take thousands of proteins, and they have to assemble themselves kind of like Legos. But if you just shook up a box and, Barbie Dreamhouse emerged from that, that's kind of the scale of what is going on. So there are a lot of molecular interactions that are going to be very specific between multiple virus proteins, and that's kind of how they seem to come together. And that's certainly not all that viruses do, but I hope that gives you a little more of a perspective on where they're coming from. So, thanks very much.